So technically, I worked undercover on top secret military bases right after I was out of high school into college, because there was a lot of activity, narcotics, that sort of thing. I could have made all kinds of purchases and buys. And I think you guys have a background. You have a background. There's several people connected to you who have a background who would understand that. And I appreciate the comment earlier, because a lot of people don't realize I operate very honestly, upfront, very forward. That's my training. If you called me up when I was at work, I'm going to answer the phone. Customs, Carman, just like that, or variances of that. And you ask me any question, I've got to be able to answer it. If I can't answer it, that would be rare, because I'm well read on the background. But yeah, I graduated college. I went to several high schools. I was martial arts in Japan, several languages. Got into Secret Service right out of Miramar College, which is right next to MCAS, which it used to be Naval Air Station, but now it's MCAS, Miramar. And went straight into Secret Service in Washington after I went through a 19-week academy. Then we went to a specialized academy 6 to 8 weeks after that up in Beltsville. And then we were assigned to Foreign Missions Division, at least I was for a while. Counterterrorism, looking for people like Carlos the Jackal. That was active back then, and it was just after Nixon had just left on August 9th, 1974. And then I transferred to the White House, halfway through, and was protecting Ford and Carter. But we protected the embassies and did all the counterterrorism stuff. And one of the things I didn't really expect to talk about too much was I had an encounter with a young man, because we were psychologically trained as well. So it means if you had a mental problem, I could evaluate you, have you sent over to St. Elizabeth's Hospital, and have you evaluated for either 30, 60, or 90 days. No different than the state of California and any other states where they have certain procedures in law enforcement. So I was state, local, and federally trained, but mostly federally trained. But go ahead if you want to ask something here.
So you were employed as a federal law enforcement officer in a number of venues.
Correct.
You have the requisite training, education, and experience. Basically, what I'm doing is setting the foundation for all of this. So, having said that, the thing that occurred to you where you became a whistleblower occurred as you were employed by U.S. Customs?
Well, that was the most recent. Technically, I saw it even in Secret Service, to be unfortunately honest about it. I'm the guy that interviewed a young man in front of the White House. I'll do the punchline story. The guy's wandering around. He wants to see the president. Oh, what are you doing out so late? And it's like 2 a.m. So I engage him in a conversation friendly, and we had crazies that would hang out anyway. But I would engage him in a conversation. He was talking about microwaves in his head. This is before MK Ultra came out. Sexually related terms, which I won't repeat. And then Jodie Foster, and I go, my God, he must have seen that movie Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro and Jodie Foster.
Right.
May have seen it. And it's kind of a psychological twist. It's got some stuff in it, and it actually has something about Secret Service and some presidential candidate in there. So if you could tell the audience and explain it to it, some people cannot go into a movie and separate truth from fiction or fact from fiction or whatever, and they have a problem when they walk out. They're still living in the movie type of thing. They can't separate or something. But I got this guy to talk to me, and he finally said, yeah, I want to see the president and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, look, maybe I can get you in to see somebody. Let me see if I can get an interview. So I contacted the duty agent, and he came down. On a midnight shift, they're usually studying for their master's degrees or something, if there's nothing going on. And that's the inside joke for sure. Like I bugged this guy. Oh, what is it? Who do I have to interview tonight? Well, this guy wants to see the president, and blah, blah, blah. And he started talking about Jodie Foster and all this other stuff. Oh, I got to talk to him. Jodie Foster, huh? Oh, that sounds like a good one, So I said, good. Just make sure you spell my name right on the report and get him to St. Elizabeth's tonight. I'm going to go back out on my patrols looking for Carlos the Jackal and, terrorism and all kinds of stuff that they won't release in the newspapers, like the bombs and stuff. And that's a separate thing not more than 2 blocks away at the Russian embassy at that time. They had bombs set off over there. They've had them set off outside the perimeter of the White House years ago, which is another interesting bunch of facts. But yeah, 5 years later, by that time, I got frustrated because they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, and they were making mistakes, and there were still political people left over from 1963 that had worked there still, that were connected to the big coup from Dallas in 63. That's what really concerned me. And I used to see the limousine that JFK was in. We protected it. I saw the desk that he used, the Resolute desk that has a lot of special meaning and things like that. I mean, I could take you through a mental tour of the West Wing that would be like ultra secret type stuff up to a point, and people wouldn't get it. But I've almost arrested staff members that were doing stuff illegal. I won't mention Judy Woodruff. Remember Judy Woodruff? She has a show or something.
Yeah, boy, does that name sound familiar.
Yeah, she's a blonde. She's out of the West Wing press corps, and she's walking around in a restricted area trying to take a peek and see if at the mansion side, which is Oval Office, West Wing press corps to the mansion route. And I'm standing right there, and she peeked around. I said, Judy, come here. I'm waving her over with my finger. Where's your pass? I want it right now. I want it. If she doesn't give it to me, I'm giving her some bracelets real quick. I like the bracelets. I can put them on in less than 2 seconds if you're cooperative, usually.
So if you were working the Secret Service, under which venue did you, or under which service did you become a whistleblower? Was it under the Secret Service?
Well, I'm going to give you some information that I just told you. That is something that I haven't really gone into detail, but it was originally Customs is my big story.
Okay.
Secret Service, I've complained through internal affairs about several things, and they fouled up, but it's not a big story like I've been doing with Customs. Customs is the worst.
Okay. John, which one would you like to start off with then tonight? Would you want to start off with Secret Service? Or
yeah, I was just going to real quickly go over that real quick.
Okay.
And I almost arrested Barbara Walters, who was trying to get in one time.
That would have been fun.
In a limousine, no less. Like, here's a limousine pulling up to the gate, and I happen to be there that day at that gate. And I'm on the radio. Do we have traffic? I got a limousine blocking the gate. It's a big, heavy-duty gate, electronics now, but huge, and you couldn't drive through it anyway. And there's a limousine driver, so I contacted, hey, I got Miss Walters in here. She's got an appointment with the First Lady or something. Really? I've already got radio traffic on my transmitter radio, Motorola. And then I go on the phone and tap them once, go out and make contact and open the door. There's Barbara Walters sitting there. Not a very nice-looking lady. She did not have a happy presence about her. She wasn't very friendly, like, oh, good morning, blah, blah, blah. I asked her for her ID, and she refused. She says, I don't have one. Now, how many people do you know in the media or anywhere else that's going to approach the White House, and they just don't happen to have a wallet,
right,
a purse, their ID from NBC, ABC, CBS, or wherever she was that week? And I'm just like, sure you do. Come on, what's in the vehicle? That's what I'm worried about. You know what I mean? What's in the vehicle? So I go, okay, hold on right here. And she confirmed, well, I've got an appointment with the First Lady, blah, blah, blah. That would be Betty Ford at that time. Go back on the phone for a private conversation. Look, I'm about ready to cuff this woman up. Tell me what's going on. Nope, she does not have an appointment. Get her out of there.
Ooh.
I'm getting cuffed up, and they're arguing with me. No, don't do it. Don't do it. And I said, what if I already did, right? Too late. I got the gun at the driver's mouth, and I've got her cuffed up. Where do you want me to put their bodies? I mean, come on. We don't know what's in the vehicle. We don't know what's in the trunk. It could have had a surgical nuke, which I became aware of much later, but still, that was still in the thought processes. So I did what they asked anyway. I was being politically correct, and I learned a lot from these little incidents because that's how they reacted. They didn't react like the way John Carman would have done it. Gun to the head, down on the ground, cuffed up, and get the car, take it someplace else safe where they could examine it real quick before they find out later that they could have had something. that would blow up or something. See, that's how they would do it, a terrorist. They would get it as close to the mansion, and then what stupid officer or agent would let them in anyway? There's all kinds of scenarios. But I've worked everywhere on those things. Hey, we need a guy on the roof. No problem. I go up on the roof. Counter sniper, all kinds of stuff. You name it. But fast forward, 1981, when I was in San Diego, I was on the police department with San Diego PD.
Okay.
That's when the infamous shooting incident occurred, and they flashed this guy's picture all over the TV when I had a TV. And I go, hey, that's the guy that I interviewed in front of the White House back in '76. That's John W. Hinckley.
Hinckley, yep.
And I go, what the hell did that guy not do? The duty agent did not get him to St. Elizabeth's, or something else happened. Who was the vice president that day when Reagan allegedly got shot at? And I'll tell you this to preface it. The police that were there at the Hilton screwed up. You're not supposed to turn around to look at the president waving. Oh, there's the president. No, you're supposed to look at the crowd looking for threat assessments and assassins and people pulling guns and knives and swords and stuff. They failed. That's why Brady got shot, first hit, and Delahunty, the cop from D.C., got hit,
right.
And then the infamous McCarthy turns around with his arms wide open, which is not what you're supposed to do, without his vest, and he got hit. Well, that's weird because the sound effects that were tested later, and you can confirm it with a guy named John Judge on a YouTube interview, he's gone. He's Intel connected in Alexandria, Virginia. They said they did the sound wave tests, and the gunshots were already finished by the time Reagan got hit when he had his arm up, waving. So they went in, took him to the hospital, and, of course, you got all the agents pulling out their Uzis and guns and all this other stuff. But they took him to the hospital, and they went in, X-ray first, and they couldn't find a bullet. So they went in anyway to find out what it was. It was shrapnel of some sort. They couldn't figure it out. It was not a bullet. That's what I'm saying. They're claiming a bullet hit the side of the limo, traveled up, and then miraculously jumped up and hit him into the rib cage area in his armpit. That's it. That's weird. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't, the travel, the distance, and the sound waves, it doesn't make any sense. They went in later and found a disc, a flechette-shaped disc like the size of a dime. That's CIA stuff. That's high-pressured, high-powered rifle-type stuff or a pistol at a close range. No sound, just an air pressure, like from a BB gun or something.
Okay, I know what a flechette is. And for those who don't, think the metal tip, for example, of a modern arrow. So something that is aerodynamically designed. But now you said it was the size of roughly a dime, and they found something like that in him in that kind of configuration?
Yeah, imagine this. Instead of a flechette, I could have said like a throwing dart from a ninja weapon.
All right.
Or if you pull up a dime, I pulled up a dime, the edges are cut off, shaped like a saw blade or something like that.
Okay.
So it's kind of a misnomer, and you picked up on it, but it's still a disc or a small disc. It could have been flechette, meaning edged or sharpened. That's the actual description. But they went in twice. There was no bullet. And I actually contacted people like that before years ago. They wouldn't respond. I even sent emails of contacts to McCarthy, who was supposedly retired out of Secret Service. And even the agents didn't get that much money back then. We got like $11,600 a year in 1974. That was our yearly salary in 74. I made that in weeks at U.S. Customs. It's outrageous what we used to pay or get paid. That's dedication, right?
That reminds me of 1978 when I'm working for a coastal sheriff's department south of Sacramento, and I'm making $5.79 an hour, plus if I worked graves, a 35-cent an hour a shift differential. I was making the big bucks back there. But
you're rolling in the dough.
Oh, rolling in the dough. And where we were at the time, if you wanted to buy a home, homes were $100,000 way back then. Nobody had $100,000.
We're all kept at the same level even today. Yeah, $15 minimum wage, blah, blah, blah. And if you're at customs long enough, like, I should have been promoted. A district director, $120,000 up to $200,000. You got deans at colleges that make more than the president of the United States. And I won't mention that imitation Indian out of Oklahoma lady. My God, she got an ungodly amount just for doing a lecture or something, and she lied about her heritage.
Yeah,
I've got more Indian blood in me, and I was born on a U.S. Air Force base in Oklahoma. There you go.
I think the car that I drove here tonight in has more Indian blood in it.
There you go. Exactly. Yatahe, brother.
Thank you. Pocahontas, as we say. So,
yeah.
You saw X-100, Kennedy's car. You worked for the Secret Service.
Right.
We've got 2 hours tonight, folks. The whole 2 hours. So, like I said, we may be bopping back and forth with ideas and whatnot and places to go. So it might be sort of a stream of consciousness thing for both John Carman and myself.
Yeah, do that, or I could do a really fast forward stuff, and do it that way.
But having worked for the Secret Service, and we'll get into the whistleblower stuff, obviously.
Sure.
Having worked there, spoken to a lot of different people, did you end up formulating any kind of an opinion about the Kennedy assassination one way or the other?
Well, through years of research. Now, I was 10 years old when it happened, and I studied this stuff. And we had a presentation at the last final academy phase at the Secret Service location up in Beltsville, Maryland. And the first day they asked, will you be willing to take a bullet for a member of the first family and the president, blah, 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 blah. If not, then you're free to walk out of here. They have to say that to everybody at the first day of the final academy. Like somebody's going to be embarrassed and go, nah, I thought twice about it. And all the money that the government put into training and get me to that point, I'm going to quit? No, come on. But everybody doesn't understand. Even today, when I try to explain stuff about Secret Service and even other whistleblowers, they will never get it unless they actually worked in the agency. One qualified person, me, got the job that 1,500 other people that were qualified could make for some reason. And my background was very, very meticulously trained, and I had lots of stuff in behind it. We had ex-military, special forces, and then we had other guys who were just civilians and picked up golf balls at a golf range. That guy did 20 years. He did his whole 20 years there. Perfect, right? But he was trying to get out of work and injured himself. He was a desk jockey kind of guy. I was the action guy. I want to be outdoors, rain, sleet, snow, hail, radioactivity, anything. I'm going to be the guy to catch the bad guys. And I did. I caught guys at fence jumpers, midnight shifts, at gunpoint, cuffed them up, no problem. Nobody resisted, thank God. I missed a shooting incident by 5 minutes. So if the guy had waited 5 minutes, then I would have had to have dealt with him. And it's your choice. It's a dealer's choice. If he comes up to you and he's not responding, you give him a couple of tries. If he doesn't respond, English, Spanish, German, Dutch, Irish, whatever, Japanese or something, he still doesn't respond. He looks like a black South African and you can't speak Nairobi that week or Mombasa or something, then, yeah, you have to take your chance and do what you have to do. But I've also second-guessed and critiqued the jumpers they've had since then as well and the mistakes that they've made. But lots of incidents. I got to see the actual limousine, by the way. I don't want to detract. I get sidetracked sometimes. But I saw the limousine that we were protecting 3 or 4 floors down below ground. And I touched it. I practically licked it, wanted to jump in the back seat so I could go collect some DNA, right? And they wouldn't let me do it. And I wanted to examine that vehicle up close. Can you imagine, with my background now with searching vehicles at the border for 15 years, what I could do with the actual JFK limousine? I could find evidence.
Folks, we're talking to John Carman. We got to take a break. John, I do a break at the bottom and top of the hour for about 5 minutes, so we're going to do this one now. We'll do another one at 9:30. So
Cool.
When I come back, yeah, folks, we will get to the whistleblower part. But like I say, I've got 2 hours, and it's my damn show. So when we come back, I'd like to maybe pick John Carman's brain with regard to the Secret Service, the Kennedy assassination. And this was kind of a thing for me for a while. I was interested in this. There have been any number of thoughts, suppositions, conspiracies, etc. about the Kennedy assassination. But one thing seems pretty complete, pretty clear, is that there was an obvious clash between Dallas PD and the Secret Service. That much was obvious. When we come back, I'd like to go a little bit into the Kennedy assassination, and then we'll continue on. So, folks, you're listening to me. I am BZ. You are in the Saloon. Tonight's guest is John Carman. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Shannon Wright of The Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Mike's not here, so I gotta talk fast. You gotta join us. Fall season. Getting ready to start up with a whole bunch of new stuff. News and food and politics and sports and entertainment and a whole bunch of stuff. But wait, Mike's coming. I gotta go. Remember, Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media, Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. Make sure you tune in.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian sackheads Clint plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty voided Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the show. I am BZ. We're talking tonight to John Carman, who has worked any number of places for the federal law enforcement, for the United States Secret Service. He worked for the San Diego PD and also for U.S. Customs. You know what? You can follow me on Twitter at BZEP, BZEP. If you would, please share the show tonight. If you're listening on Spreaker right now, please hit share. If you can hit Sonny, but you can try to, but he's passed away by now. If you're listening to the show later in podcast, please share the show all over the place. Please share. I'm on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict. If you're watching on YouTube, click share. Give us a big thumbs up, if you would, please. If you're watching on Facebook, click on share and send out to all your friends in a bunch of groups, any and all that you think would be relevant. So please friend, follow, and like the SHR Media Facebook page. And please subscribe to the SHR Media YouTube channel. Click on notifications. Give our videos a big old thumbs up. We've got great hosts and great videos and great shows on SHR Media. So before the break, we're talking to John Carman. Before the break, we were beginning to chat about the Kennedy assassination. And one of the things that I asked was, John Carman, do you have any thoughts that you've gathered over the years because you served for the U.S. Secret Service? So do you have any thoughts about the Kennedy assassination itself? Who was involved? Perhaps what were the motivations on that, John?
Yeah, there's a lot of motivations, and just to be specific, just to let you know, we had a special day for an agent to come down and give us the briefing, talk about the Warren Commission report, and show us the Zapruder film, which was not the original Zapruder film. It was still the altered Zapruder film. 313 was not in the framing. That's the actual shot that hit Kennedy from the lower left area of where the storm drain and or the sewer cover area was near the Stemmis Freeway sign, which would hit his right front area and then splatter up into the frame, which would show a direct line. That's how that is. That's why they took it out. That takes away the whole idea about the lone male shooter at the rear, at the school book depository, and things like that. But when we asked about stuff like that, the agent told us the official agency response is the Warren Commission report. He didn't entertain any photographs or newspaper articles or pictures of Oswald standing outside the school book depository like within minutes of the shooting and things like that. So it's like, oh, he must have took the short straw that day and he had to go do the presentation. And he was there for probably 15, 20 minutes, showed us the film, and then basically left it at that and left. Less than an hour. I've seen more time spent on other subjects, and yet that was a very critical part of our history. I just sent you a special photo on your Facebook message to show you a special photo of Dealey Plaza.
Okay.
And it's an expanded version that people don't understand. Is every time you see a picture of the Dealey Plaza picture, it's closed in and zoomed in so that you don't see the actual freeway, the bridge, the railroad yard off to the left, the official post office, allegedly in the parking lot way off to the right. Shooters everywhere, you name it. You know, from Marseille, from Trafficante side, that gets into the James Files, James A. Sutton guy, to people who were not at the fence, you know, they claim that's there. It's like the same stuff we're fighting today, that these left-wing Democrat Marxist communists. Oh, look, you know, the smoke from the grassy knoll thing and BS like that. There's so many shooters. They had an estimate of about 6 to 8 shooters that they estimate. I sent you a special photo which actually marks off certain areas so that you could see. Plus, I've actually talked to people subsequent to that time, not as an official, but on my own, as I came across information with drug-related type questions, like a guy who's a CIA pilot named Robert Tosh Plumlee, who's still alive. I talked to him several years ago, and it turns out later he says, "Oh, John, by the way, did I ever tell you I was in Dallas that day?" And I said, "No, you didn't." And I used to have Jim Mars, another famous writer and person who would do radio shows and books and everything from aliens to even JFK stuff out of Texas. And he specifically wanted to know stuff about the storm drain covers. How come they got, you know, sealed up? Well, it was ever since that day in Dallas that they had to seal the parade route. So anytime you have a parade route or an alternate route, they all had to be sealed up because of the possibility that they could be used by an assassin. I won't go into detail on how, but that's what they do. So every time the president goes somewhere, they've already had an advance team. They go out and check all the routes. No different than where Reagan was shot versus when Abraham Lincoln was shot, and all these other comparisons in history to protect the president and make sure that they get a safe transition from one location to the other, just like he did the other day at the Bethesda Naval Hospital. He got into a limousine. They drove him down to the helicopter pad where the Marine One is. They loaded him up there, and he flew back to his office, back to the White House, which is the way they could have done or should have done versus just taking the vehicle the long way and driving all the way down. But when you compare what happened with Kennedy, oh, my God, everything has changed. Everything is outrageous. I mean, I used to listen to the radio transmissions that they had on Air Force One that you could pull up off YouTube, and you can hear about 2 hours worth of radio transmissions immediately after the assassination in '63. I do not hear what I expect. I do not hear the emotion. I do not hear what should have been coming across the airwaves. I hear cold commentaries that are almost laughable, that they act like they got away with it. And you know, when they transferred the body, that wasn't Jack Kennedy in the coffin. That was Officer Tibbetts' body. So they switched bodies. That was the whole purpose of switching the caskets. So there's all these witnesses over the years. Oswald was a patsy. He was set up. James Earl Ray, same thing with Martin Luther King. He was a patsy. He was set up. It was a military coup type of thing. Military are involved in a lot of those things because they follow orders. They're compartmentalized. And a lot of people they will protect and take care of them after a while. If not, they'll do that like the Egyptian kings and just kill them off later. See, that's what's weird. That's what CIA does. In fact, they just came out with something about the Benghazi stuff and the Osama bin Laden in the last 24 hours, and I think I sent you a copy of that as well.
It's very funny that you should mention that.
Yeah.
I didn't have time. I decided I would much rather speak to you tonight about that or about this story.
We could do it.
But, okay, here's the story. And this story was written, I sent a message to her, the author of this story. She's been on the show numerous times. And for folks who are not aware, Carrie Baxter Donovan, who has been on the show a bunch of times, broke a story today, the 13th, on, let's see, what is this? JOHN Media. And it's all over the internet now. I'm trying to get her on the show Thursday night. I haven't gotten a response yet, and usually she does. And by the way, folks, if you can't hear, that's the studio cat in the background meowing, if you happen to hear a cat meowing. Anyway, the story that she wrote and released today, the headline is, Explosive Update. CIA whistleblower exposes Biden's alleged role with the death of the SEAL team, claimed to have documented proof. That is an astounding story. I'm sure there's a massive backstory to it. You can go anywhere now and pick up the story. Read it for yourself. Like I say, with luck Thursday, I'll be able to talk to Carrie Baxter Donovan about that. Anyway, that just broke today. Huge, huge story. So let's go back, John Carman, to the Kennedy assassination. Then we'll get back into the actual topic, the whistleblowing aspect of it that apparently has absolutely collapsed and ruined.
I'm doing it right. Yeah, I'm doing it right now. What we're doing is called a protected disclosure for you folks out there that don't know what whistleblowers do. I'm actually doing a special protected disclosure by talking and doing a radio show with you right now.
Well, and the reason for that is you're getting it out into the atmosphere.
Exactly.
And by doing part of that, getting it out into the atmosphere, then it's a protective kind of thing, just as you indicate. The Kennedy assassination, you mentioned the military, you mentioned the mafia, because I can't think of the guy that was. He was involved with Marilyn Monroe, who was involved romantically with JFK, perhaps with RFK.
Sam Giancana.
Giancana, thank you very much. And so people were theorizing that perhaps the mafia, by way of Giancana, was involved in this. Kind of a strange love triangle. If everybody remembers, Marilyn Monroe saying, "Happy birthday, Mr. President," in a rather revealing dress in 1961, I believe, or 1962, for his birthday, as, of course, he's married to Jackie. So, great intricate lines throughout all of this. But, John Carman, did you come to any kind of a conclusion or a supposition about the JFK assassination, or are there just lots of things, lots of strings that are in the air, and no one can really say for sure what happened?
CIA, George Herbert Walker Bush, Poppy Bush, involved in Bay of Pigs, involved in Dallas that day. He always lied about where he was in Dallas, or not even in Dallas, but just where he was on November 22nd, 1963. And if you're old enough to remember that, I knew where I was. Everybody does.
You bet I do.
So it's like, okay, I was in school and blah, blah, blah. So there's a man directly connected to that. In fact, when they're doing the FOIA requests and releasing information just 90 days before he died, Trump delayed the FOIA request because he knew the information directly related to Bush Sr. Bush was in Dallas. He was at the rail yard. He was there at the school book depository building, the famous photograph. And then, of course, you got all these hundreds of left-wingers. Oh, no, that's not him, and blah, blah, blah. Really? You know, I mean, I'm a behavioral analysis expert. I look at photographs all day with passports all day. I processed 5 million people in 15 years. I think I have an expertise and background on something. I mean, I'm a human lie detector and all these things. It's amazing which if you break it down what it is. But if you look at all this stuff, it's like, yeah, it was all a special pre-planned thing. They had the Secret Service was actually involved because they pulled the guys off the limousines before the shooters. Even Clint Hill, who was Jackie's agent, he was the only one that ran up.
Right.
The other guys were held back. I've had every conspiracy theorist, including Bill Cooper theory, and I had a guy recently who was making threats. So I get death threats still related to various things. Some guy tried to convince me that the driver of the JFK limousine reached around with his left hand all the way around, like over 180 degrees, and shot John F. Kennedy in the head where the bullet actually came from the right front area. There's no way it happens. It's crazy. But that's what they're trying to do, is push off these theories and lies and keep doing it and perpetuating the lie, because that's part of the war. We're at war, like you said earlier. People haven't declared it because they don't realize how bad and vicious these people are. They're animals, and they don't care about taking down a president. Our president is at risk even now, and stuff like that. But you got the mob, you got the military coup involved, you got LBJ and all of his people. The famous meeting with the Murchison Ranch down in Texas, J. Edgar Hoover was there. Supposedly, the congressman, remember the congressman from California, from San Clemente, Richard Nixon, people like that. And all these people were making comments. When the first shot or a noise, it could have been a backfire, went off, LBJ ducked down in the limousine. He was 2 cars back or so. The agent that was with him, who was Rowley, he's the guy that got rewarded later. They named a facility after him. I won't even repeat his name because it's disgusting, because he was connected to something that he got rewarded by LBJ. Oh, you won't say anything about it, will you? No, keep quiet and I'll reward you. I'll take care of you later, blah, blah, blah. That means we had dirty Secret Service agents at that detail that day, on his detail or near it. LBJ had a radio transmitter in his hand too. What's a vice president do with a radio transmitter in his hand? And we've had all these other theories.
There, John Carman, there was a book that I read, and I remember it now.
Yeah.
And I looked it up just now. It was called Mortal Error. I can't think of the guy. Bonar Menninger wrote the book. And the supposition of that book was, about 3 cars back, there was a Secret Service agent named George Warren Hickey who was holding an AR,
right?
And the AR somehow cooked off. It was, an AD, an accidental discharge, and it was actually this Secret Service agent who shot JFK. So the conspiracy theories, there are tons of them. I think there are over 200 books written about the JFK assassination. Does one entity stick out in your head, John Carman, as to who is responsible?
Well, like I said earlier, Bush, they had their own kill team. They had snipers, 6 to 8 of them at the buildings, even before they turned down Elm Street. So they had them way back. Off to the left is the school book depository. That's where the alleged target shooter is supposed to be, Oswald, and everybody else was free to shoot. That stuff about the shooter, the agent with an M16 or an AR-15 is ludicrous, because how did he shoot Kennedy? And if he shot him, it wasn't the one that was the kill shot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So they're going to do everything they can. Even today, it is so amazingly, it frustrates the you-know-what out of me, that the way these people will lie right to your face and tell you, oh, it was something else. It was this. It was that. It was everything else, but don't look over there, because that's where the real shooter is. The lies,
John Carman, the one thing that I took away from the Kennedy assassination was something similar to, and I make no claim as to being any kind of an expert about any of that at all, but the primary thing that I took away is the U.S. Secret Service and the Dallas Police Department, if anyone and everyone could have cocked that thing up worse, I don't quite know how they could have done that. They almost came to blows in the hallway. People were arguing about who was to claim the body.
Oh, yeah.
The initial autopsy was a cluster.
It was a cover-up.
You could have screwed it up more, maybe, but I don't know how. So let me ask you this. In the intervening years, since 1963, could somebody pull this off again, where everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got a camera, everybody's watching the president, everything is being recorded? Could anything like this be pulled off against any kind of an executive around the world now in 2020?
Not in the same way that you're thinking or how you ask the question. And it's a good question. I'm just saying that when I look at it, I translate it into many other technological things that we have today that we didn't have then. Like you say, cell phones with cameras and stuff like that. Well, they've got devices that are just as small, and they got devices that are smaller, and they've got drones. I hate to reference movies, but that's how you have to educate people. I don't even watch all the movies because I already know what real stuff is. And I've done threat assessments and sent them off to the White House every time I see something new, like the drones that they had back in 1991. That's when I was at U.S. Customs, and some guy I was talking to at an entertainment place, comedy club, and he happened to mention, oh, yeah, what about this and what about that? Oh, yeah, if you flew something across the border in a drone, you'd still have to check in with Customs. If you're talking about doing something illegal, then you can get caught. You're still transporting. You can still get caught. He was trying to get technological information, which I was translating. That's what he really wanted to get. But they caught a guy with a drone flying near the White House or over the White House grounds a couple of years ago. And they eventually decided, hey, we better restrict all travel, no drones in the 15.5-mile radius of the White House. That's all of D.C. So if you get caught flying a drone, you can be charged. Even when I worked at the White House, you couldn't fly anything over less than 500 feet. I'm going, my God, that's crazy. 300 feet to a football field, folks. 2 football fields, that's 600 feet. So if you fly something over 600 feet, we're supposed to just let it go? Are you kidding? I'm hitting the alarm. I'm whipping out the rifles and the rifled slug and the Uzis and all this other stuff. And that's back then. Nowadays, they've got rocket launchers and surface air missiles and all kinds of electromagnetic devices and all kinds of things. And they got people stationed everywhere on top of the roof, on top of that, too. But when you look at the technological stuff, I think there was a movie with Gerard Butler and Morgan Freeman, who always seems to get the president part.
Yes.
Right? And they play that thing up at the drones just in the last several years, and I go, oh, my God. As soon as they released it, I had to do another report. Every time I see something new, especially with this lousy COVID-19 lie, it's like, okay, I get it. Well, either way, if they knew what they were doing, you know, it comes out of Wuhan, and it's Chinese, and they're releasing stuff into the atmosphere. They're doing it. They're doing a biological warfare. But if it's not real and it's just a real bad virus or a cold, take your vitamin zinc, 50 milligrams. Take your vitamin C, 1,000 liposomal vitamin C, your D3, and colloidal silver is another one I'm researching. But I already did all the research, and I talked to other people who are whistleblowers, and Carrie Madej, Rashid Battar, and then there's Rachel Seller, and they're all excellent people in the field, like a lot of other whistleblowers that are medical people. And they'll tell you, yeah, the hydroxychloroquine. If you talk to the president of Ghana this week, he'll tell you, real nice guy, religious, Christian, he'll ask his minister of health, well, how many instances of COVID do we have, minister? And the guy will say, oh, we had 4. And everybody else is taking malaria meds because they have an incidence of malaria in that country, so they just take malaria meds like it's nothing. They're going around with quinine, they're drinking Tom Collins mix. Quinine, hydroxychloroquine is not a big deal. It's normal. They probably had 4 incidences of COVID-19, and there were probably visitors traveling from China through Ghana. That's how obvious. So it's crazy.
It's funny you should mention that, because I did a 2-hour special report about 2 weeks ago on an update from coronavirus. That particular show was completely removed by Facebook and also removed by YouTube.
Yes, they just removed it. You cannot put anything on there on Facebook right now about it.
And another friend of mine, Jeremy Hansen, got in trouble when all he did was share my show about that at the time. But one of the questions involved was exactly what you're talking about. Let's see. I got about 2 more minutes before the top of the hour break. So what was being spoken about that you just mentioned is Africa. A lot of people were postulating when this thing first started, oh my God, Africa. Africa is going to explode with this. They're thinking Ebola. They're thinking just a massive, it's going to go through Africa like shit through a goose. It's going to completely decimate Africa, and it didn't. And one of the major reasons that it didn't is exactly what you say. People have been taking hydroxychloroquine for quite some time. to combat malaria, and that's one of the major factors in that people don't want you to know. It's cheap.
That's why the Chinese did the cremation of the bodies, and Italy and Germany did autopsies, and they found out from the coagulation or the blood reactions, it's a bacteria. It's not a virus. That means they can give antibiotics all day long. The special cocktail that President Trump got,
Oh, okay. Damn it. Okay, I got to take a break in about a minute, but it's funny. I was talking to a gentleman today that I just referred to, Jeremy Hansen, who said that he received information recently that it's a bacteria and that it's not a virus, and they're going to move it from a pandemic to an epidemic and attempt to keep this going for years to come. Okay, folks, enough of that. When we come back, we're talking to John Carman. Boom, 1 hour, gone. Just like that. Oh, by the way, in chat, welcome to Sergeant Booker in chat. The Alaskan is in chat. Jack Alexander in chat. And Mike Pasqua in chat. Thanks for being here tonight. When we come back, we're going to focus with John Carman on the whistleblowing aspect and how that happens to have absolutely exploded his life, turned it upside down, and then I'd like to have him talk about it, who was involved, what was involved, and information that I have that we spoke about earlier indicates that, it happened to do with human trafficking. So, wait, is the government involved in human trafficking? Let's find out when we come back right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York. The Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnett.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on SHRmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian sackheads Clint plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back. Holy crap. 1 hour has gone boom already. For those of you unaware, today is also tomorrow. Now, on the left coast, it's 9:06 p.m. On the right coast, East Coast, it is 12:06 p.m. And it's 1749 and 723.2 divided by 4 subsector 3 in Bolivia. But I could never quite get Bolivian time. That's just kind of weird. By the way, if you're on Spreaker, share the show. If you're on YouTube, please share the show. If you're on Facebook, please share the show. We're talking to John Carman. We blew through an hour like it was about 2 minutes. We've got an hour left. The goal was to talk tonight about the situation that involved John when he was a whistleblower, and I believe that was with U.S. Customs. Before we go there, I also want to mention this. In the process of talking to John, setting up for the show a couple of days ago, we shotgunned the crap over a bunch of topics, and I discovered that one of the topics that interests him is UFOs. I also am recently a UFO devotee because I've seen some, and I don't mind telling people about it. So maybe someday in the future, I'd like to have John come back and we can talk about all sorts of things involving UFOs. Now, that having been said, a programming note, next Tuesday night, I'm going to be having Eric Regard, who is the GOP candidate for California Assembly in District 9, which is South Sacramento and down to Elk Grove and into San Joaquin County in Lodi. He's going to be on. We're going to be talking about his candidacy, and we're also going to be discussing all the crazy-ass California propositions that are on the ballot and how you really should end up voting no on most of them. So we'll be discussing that on the 20th. Now, October 27th, because I just got the okay for this, Brandon Straka, who started the Walkaway hashtag, is going to be back on the show for the 5th time. And every time I ask, it takes about an hour, and he comes back to me and he says, yeah, I'll be on the show. So mark your calendars, October 27th, which is, I believe, a Thursday. Brandon Straka is going to be back because a ton of stuff has happened to him since then. So just mark that in your calendars. Folks, we're talking to John Carman, and with an hour left, John, if we could, I'd like to have you speak about what occurred while you were, I believe, with U.S. Customs, what made you a whistleblower, the individuals that were involved, and the situation or situations, plural, that you saw, I believe, involving human trafficking that made you a whistleblower, sir.
Right. And keep in mind, all of my previous other law enforcement training, expertise, experiences, and so forth seem to kind of lead up because you keep adding on to your experiences. That's what we're doing mostly. If you're human, you come here and you learn your experiences and you build on them. And I see a pattern. I see where it's leading up to even more stuff and more things. And I'm building on top of that. So when I got into U.S. Customs, well, actually, I went for Secret Service, San Diego PD. Then I went private investigator in between. Then I got reinstated back to the U.S. Treasury through the U.S. Mint up in San Francisco just to get reinstated.
Okay.
Guarded a ton of gold, literally, back in 82, whatever the price of gold was, less than $300 an ounce, 1,065 pounds. I don't know if I sent you that picture. That's a cool picture of all the gold bullion. And then I transferred to Customs in 83. So went straight down the San Diego district, went over to Calexico, which I turned down over a dozen times. And they put me on a special assignment, one of those gigs. And I got, okay, how long will I have to be there? Oh, just a year. And I said, okay, fine. So I go over there, and I'm finding corruption. I'm finding narcotic seizures myself, first day out. I'm getting all kinds of stuff, and I raised too many flags because they're asking, who is this new guy? He hasn't been to the academy yet. He hasn't done this or he hasn't done that. Yeah, I'm full-fledged. I was sworn in. I was already a career employee. That's what threw them. And when I went to the academy and came back, no problem, flying colors and all that. In fact, my badge number is on that document. I think I sent it to you, the John Heinrich overflight list, just to let you know. 22201. That's me. That's my badge number. So when I see stuff at the border, the most serious incident was in 1985 where I seized heroin. We were even told that if we got a bunch of heroin on a heroin seizure because they had problems with heroin getting through, these other guys weren't catching it. And I'm looking at people differently because I evaluate people in a much different way. I've been doing that since I was Secret Service. So they didn't hire me because I was good looking and could jump in front of a bullet joke thing. But I got this heroin off this border crosser. He was nervous when I grabbed his ID. I'm looking at him. I'm looking at his shoes because that's where they were hidden. I look at everything. I look and see if you got bulges, if you're acting nervous, all these things. So I took him in for the pat-down room, and he was resistant on just doing a regular pat-down, and I had to cuff him up right away. That's control. There was a control issue. And then I took his shoes off, plunged them or plucked them or probed them. That's the word. I'm tripping over my words. I had a special little probe that was a zero-measured Phillips head that I had specially made, and you could plunge it through the side of the shoe into the fleshy part or the heel or whatever. And when I pulled it out, I just waved it near my nose, and it smelled like vinegar, if you know what brown tar heroin smells like.
Right.
And I go, okay, that's a positive. I got this guy. I got the shoes. I took him right over to get him strip searched, and the supervisor, I won't mention Honorio Garcia, the Hispanic supervisor for U.S. Customs that week, but he was busy on the phone with his girlfriend or somebody. So I had to yell at him, hey, look, we got to do a thing here. I got a seizure here. And he has to supervise and watch me do a strip search on this guy immediately. They fouled it up. We had to close the door. We had to wait 5-10 minutes. Well, during that time, the guy flipped out another package out of his sock into another part of this bench, which I found later. But point is, there was 11 ounces. You know how big a Snickers bar is, right?
Right.
That's one bar. One in each shoe plus two more, one in each sock. That's over 12 ounces. Whatever the price of brown tar heroin was in 1985, and I got pictures of that on my Facebook. I got pictures on my website, which I can't even type on Facebook. customscorruption.com, and you can go to page 2, customscorruption.com/page2.htm, and you'll see all kinds of cool pictures. And you can scroll down and see the actual shoes, and I'm holding them up, with a big smile on my face because I was a big deal. And I got home that very same day, and they locked the guy up, and the agent comes down and does the processing. They take the contraband, and they take the guy, and they transport him to MCC in San Diego and process him. Well, that didn't happen. The supervisor, the one I didn't mention, Honorio Garcia, that's his second mention, he gave the heroin to the Mexican narcs across the border less than 50 yards away. That doesn't happen.
What?
We don't have a treaty. Yeah, exactly. You could say it one again. It does not happen in your lifetime, except John Carman's lifetime. And I reported it to Internal Affairs because when I got home that day and found out about it, I also got death threats that were called in on my unlisted phone number, landline, on a microcassette. Quote, "You're going to die like the rest, you pig," in a Hispanic white male or Hispanic male accent. So I gave copies of that to Internal Affairs. I got a transfer back to San Diego in less than 2 weeks because of that. Should have been faster. They should have arrested the supervisor, Honorio Garcia, who still probably works at U.S. Customs today in Calexico. That's where they keep the Mexican mob, the Mexican side of the cartel through the U.S. government, the corrupt government employees at U.S. Customs through the CIA. And I met a guy one day who was a high school chum of one of the coworkers, and his name was Kiki Camarena, a DEA agent.
Yes, who was killed, was he not?
In 85. He was captured out of the embassy in Guadalajara because he and his pilot accidentally flew over a ranch in Guadalajara where some obscure guy by the name of Felix Rodriguez, who was CIA, and very, very close to George Herbert Walker Bush. There's pictures of him at the White House or the Oval Office with people like that. And I met him. I shook his hand. He came over to meet me. He's an ex-Marine and everything. Real nice guy. And I think his friend wanted to introduce me because he knew about my background, being in Secret Service and being a really good seizure agent at the border and all these other things. But after that, it was Reagan administration during Oliver North. Oliver North was part of the problem. They've still got 3 guys that are witnesses to that torture and killing of our own DEA agent. And the administration basically told the family to stand down. And I used to check their family when they would come through the border, so I'm familiar with them. And I've talked to Junior, Kiki Jr., and these people are still standing down, and they supposedly went after the bad guys, but they still didn't do it the way I would have done it. I would have gone in there with Black Hawk helicopters, like Cowboys and Indians, or good guys and bad guys. Like what was that movie, Sicario 1?
Right.
Sicario 2 for sure.
Benicio del Toro's God, who is that? Josh Brolin, one of my favorite damn actors. He was fabulous in both of those movies.
The first movie was a farce because of the thing with the female agent and the black agent thing. They don't separate, and they certainly wouldn't have had her in a capacity. You have to be a real tough SOB to work those kind of jobs. But it's what they put out in Hollywood. And they're not going to fly down in helicopters and drive back in a car. They're going to fly down in Black Hawk helicopters until they're done, and then they're going to come back, and they're not even going to say or wave to customs. They'll go another route. See what I mean? All those logistical things that the public doesn't know that really, really happens, and stuff I know that they don't want me to talk about. Little protected disclosure things. But that's part of the entertainment thing,
So let me confirm, John Carman, if I can. In the 80s, you're indicating about 1985 or so.
Yep.
Are you saying that the cartels, and I don't know if the cartels were specifically quite so delineated back in 1985, you'd have to answer that question, but were the cartels even then a major influence in corruption in the United States government on the border?
Yes, easy. The CIA runs the operation. That is what I stumbled upon. When I was working to disclose information after 1995, just about 10 years later, because I already tried doing it through the chain of command. Chain of command doesn't work. Internal Affairs, Treasury, OIG, all the Treasury agencies, all the way to the Secretary of the Treasury to the actual President and Vice President. Then you can go through Department of Justice, FBI, DOJ, and all those guys, and their OIG. All the other ones. And then you can go as high as the Office of the President. Didn't work. The CIA, the deep state, they're involved directly. I've seen CIA personnel at the border at San Ysidro, the largest land border port in the world. I worked there. I've handled it, and that's where I caught a lot of narcotics. 3 seizures in an 8-hour shift is unheard of, but I did it. 3 seizures 3 days in a row on a midnight shift. I did it. I had the director coming down to bring pizza to me just because of that stuff. And I said, well, where's my promotion? I should get a 12 or a 13 by that time, which is a lot of money, and then I could afford to have a house or something. No, they didn't do that. Cartels were pissed off. I was getting death threats continually. CIA people were involved. They were letting stuff come through. When Customs has paperless entries coming from a foreign country and they land with bonded material, the CIA shows up, they take something out, and then they remove it from a computer as if it never existed. That's the kind of stuff I disclose. I've written reports on it. I've been sponsored on websites since about 2000 when I first got my computer, 99, 2000, and I left the agency in 98 due to the death threats. They never backed me up under 18 U.S.C. 111, which we very well stated before, and 18 U.S.C. 115, subparent A, subparent 2, which was actually enhanced by Bill Clinton, who was president at the time in 96. The U.S. attorney didn't protect me. I gave him a copy of all the documentation in 15 years, 2-inch thick binder of incident reports and documents outlining the stuff. Miguel Contreras, a former SAC agent from the Internal Affairs Unit of Internal Affairs in San Diego District, alone vetted me. He knows about the white groups, he knows about the Mexican groups, the cartels, all these people involved, paying off inspectors thousands and thousands of dollars, and they gave up their oath to take money. So they violated federal code of bribery. 18 U.S.C. 201, which is the first code they teach you in the academy. Don't take bribes. If you get a bribe offer, contact Internal Affairs, et cetera, et cetera. And they failed. All of my allegations are 100% correct. All of them. In 15 years alone. Can you imagine what I could do if I was back at work or doing things? These people would be arresting people at my direction, even people with badges, former judges and FBI agents, and people as high as the Oval Office. Unless they had immunity, of course, or something, you know. And that includes some of the people we've even barely talked about tonight. So there's people that don't want me alive. In fact, Mr. Heinrich made threats against his brother-in-law, Chris Gerner, and he had to get out of his house. He had to move to Texas or some other location. He died later, you know, several years later of a heart attack. That guy's still on the loose. That's what gets me. Even the FBI sent me documentation saying they have wide discretion.
Okay, let's stop here just for a second. In the thing that you sent me, you did delineate the name John Heinrich, and I think it was aligned with the Customs Service at the time.
Yes.
So can you tell folks, who is he? How is he involved, in your opinion?
Well, here's what happened. I was doing work at the B Street office, which is another alternative type of work where we clear boats, ships, planes. We clear commercial aircraft coming from Mexico or foreign countries, and we clear outgoing as well. I came across a document that was in the desk where I worked at, and I looked at it. It was the overflight list, the infamous overflight list. I looked at it, and I asked the supervisor about it, and he says, I don't know. Where'd you get that? Oh, I found it in the senior's desk. That's where I was working. And I made copies of it and kept a copy. I turned it over to a supervisor and asked him about it, and he says, oh, they can't do it. It's illegal or something. But I called Internal Affairs. I called the person at the district office, who is the district director of San Diego District, which goes from San Diego all the way to Yuma, basically. The guy up in Long Beach, which is where this guy was working, John H. Heinrich, I'm throwing the middle initial in there for a reason. He was the district director up in Long Beach, and he has no authority to allow all of his friends from Mexico or South America or any other country to come in the United States without getting inspected by a customs immigration inspector who is cross-designated and can look at passports and make determinations as to whether they need to inspect you for drugs, narcotics, or counter-terrorist type stuff or whatever. He had the names of all these people, and he countersigned it. That means it's his document. We had the aircraft tail numbers to 4 aircraft. I ran that stuff through the computer. I also gave a copy of the document to an immigration official that I knew and trusted. He ran it through their computer system. We had Treasury text computers. They had an immigration computer no different than DEA has NATIS, just to throw a few terms out there. And each one's a little bit different. They're supposed to be joined together or connected in some way. Not all of them are shared. Every one of those people on that list were Hispanic names, male and female, names and DOBs. Not one of them had a passport or an entry document to come into the United States and remain or even visit. That was $250,000, $250,000 that was paid to this man. To this date, they still haven't made an arrest on a felon. High treason, I would get into that. High treason, felony, smuggling, 8 U.S.C. 1324. That's in the immigration codes right there. That's an arrestable offense with a minimum of 2 to 5 years. With a guy like this with bribery as a high-rated government official, he could do 15 to 25, maybe life for what's going on. Those people wouldn't have got checked. You don't even know if they were terrorists coming from Iran or some other country or before 9/11, that kind of thing. So if they were coming in like that, you can imagine other people coming in violation because they have to go as high as the office of the president to get an overflight, just like when Osama bin Laden and his family were allowed to leave during 9/11. That's a little hint right there. I got all kinds of information. I don't just sit around. I learn stuff. You know that movie, 3 Days of the Condor?
Yes, I do. One of the best movies that I've seen in the 70s.
I know one of the actors, Patrick Gorman, in the beginning. He got killed off in the first 15 minutes or whatever.
I think he played the mailman, didn't he?
No, he played one of the clerks, research specialists with the Chinese lady.
Okay.
And they were talking about a buddy of mine's dojo up in La Cienega up in Hollywood, which is a connection that they had, but it was kind of a semi-weird Aikido type of a deal. But I saw that in 74. The funny thing is, the Robert Redford position, all they said was, well, what does this guy do? Is he like an agent or something? No, he just reads.
He reads books. That's what he does. He reads books.
That's the point. He reads everything. So it's not like he's so compartmentalized. He just does one or two things. Plus, he had a little training, too, which was a good feature. But you see, that's what people misunderstand. I didn't just go to work, punch in, and pass cars all day or inspect people and not get stuff. I got stuff all of the time. I was consistent. I got drugs and money and guns and all kinds of stuff, fake passports, you name it. Human trafficking. This was like the cream of the crop. If they can't handle a human trafficking case against one of their own district directors who's like a GS-25 or something, 15 above usually, then they're excluding something under the law, which is senior executive service signed into law or executive order by Jimmy Carter in 78, if I remember correctly. That's like if these guys are an SES category, they're like 1 or 2 star generals or a 1 or 2 star admiral or something, which means they may be allowed to violate the law. But that's crazy. That means we're not working from a law enforcement aspect. We're working from an aspect of, oh, that's CIA. Well, then they need to issue new badges and new patches, just like that. U.S. Customs / CIA or something, because that's what they're doing. That's why they don't want me talking. That's why I get all the really wonderful death threats and stuff like that. They should have just promoted me and transferred me somewhere nice, and then I could just live out the rest of my career and retire peacefully. But they didn't want to do that, you know. They just kept pushing the death threat thing. So, yeah, I used to have a pager. I used to get 187 on my pager all day, right? And for folks that don't live in California, 187 is the penal code section
for homicide. Exactly. Folks, we're talking to John Carman. He became a whistleblower for it. There is no real central issue about it. John Carman apparently saw everything, was an observer, attempting to do things right. When we come back, it's funny you should mention 3 Days of the Condor. I have the cap scene of that we'll listen to when we come back after the break. And then I want to ask John. John is just one person amongst thousands and thousands of individuals who essentially have had to deal with the deep state, which keeps on winning. And so when we come back, I'd like to ask John, he's seen it all, done everything. Are there solutions to any of this? My guess would be yeah, but do we have the wherewithal to implement them? So, folks, I am BZ. That's John Carman, my guest for the entire 2 hours. You're in the Saloon. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, 2 hours almost gone, like it's 5 minutes. That's what happens when you're interested in listening to what's going on. Again, to all the people in the chat room at SHR, thanks for being here so late. Thanks again to my guest, John Carman, who will be here for about another 25 minutes or so. And thanks to everybody who listens live. Thanks to everyone who listens in podcast. I get a ton of hits in podcast. And I still get emails from truckers. I should welcome the American truckers back because I discovered that they listen to me live. And they also, when they're hitting highways, listen to me in the podcast as well. So America keeps moving because of the American truckers. So God bless all you guys. Keep it going. Thank you for your hard work, especially the times that were so terrible at the beginning of all this COVID-19 foolishness, which that's a topic for another day. Holy moly. So my guest tonight is John Carman. I asked him before the break, with all the things that are going on, what could some of the solutions be? But before I pose that question, what I want people to understand, John Carman, is, let's see, you said you left in 1998, is that correct? Uh-oh, did we lose John?
Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
I mutated the button.
Okay, all right. So if
anyway, I left in 98 due to the death threats to protect a family member.
Okay, so you paid a price for all of that. When you left in 1998, it wasn't a retirement, so you didn't get a retirement, correct?
Correct.
You're not covered by medical. You're not covered by anything, correct?
Medicare technically, but I don't even get Social Security, and they're claiming that I never paid into Social Security, and that's a lie, which means they went into the computer system and wiped it clean through customs, and they submitted a false report, which means they lied through the Social Security Administration and higher-ups. And I've already got current complaints, investigations on them already, and it's amazing how bad they'll do that, because they switched civil service retirement system to FERS midstream in 89, 90. See what I mean? They're going back to 83 when I transferred laterally over to U.S. Customs. That is how bad it is.
Okay, so I think probably what I'm trying to say is, can you tell the people and let folks know essentially what your life has been like in 1998, since 1998? have you been supporting yourself? How has this affected you? What has your past been like? What's your future? All of this has had a direct effect on you because you were a whistleblower.
Yeah, and I'm a highly trained person, which is probably what kept me alive. Now, other people would have fallen by the wayside. Other people will say, well, gee, John, why didn't you just look the other way? No, it doesn't work like that. You take an oath, you enforce the law. You don't pick a moment and go, oh, I'm going to look the other way. Once you do that and you take a bribe, you're just as bad as the cartels that are smuggling. If they find out that you're dirty, they can kill you. That's how they work. If they don't like how you work, something happens, they've got you. They manipulate. But it gets involved. But I had death threats. I left the agency in 98. I still had harassment by the agency. They tried to pull a traffic stop on me, and they lost in 99. You see what I mean? But then I had to go get an attorney to fight them in court. And what's even more interesting, before I forget, I belong to a union. I belong to the Treasury Union, Treasury Employees Treasury Union, or the National Treasury Union. What do you call it? Number 105, which would be the district or the area out of San Diego. They didn't help me a bit. Go figure. You're supposed to get legal representation. You're supposed to be helped out. They didn't want me. I was too hot. Death threats. I could put people away. I could put district directors and really high up people in government in prison for life. That's what was really going on. They couldn't get me anywhere. So I went about my business. When I had my private investigator license, I did private investigations. I was able to support myself. I didn't have to touch my retirement money, which was, a measly $35,000 or so. You know, that was only 15 years. The other money I had to pull because that's what you end up doing when you can't keep it and you have to use it to buy and pay for bills and stuff. But I was doing okay, but then they tried to come along and try to set me up with an informant. That's another story in and of itself. Remember, an informant working for a government agency or a snitch cannot solicit you to violate any law, or they're violating entrapment, and they don't care. That's what they do. They tried that, and it didn't work, but they still messed with me. It gets complicated because I did end up getting in a serious situation. That's a separate show in and of itself. But a lot of people can't comprehend it. They think, oh, you could have just looked the other way. And I said, no, I had to do my job. I did what I was supposed to do. I should have got promoted. I should have got transferred and gotten all kinds. I got awards. You can look at my website. I got tons of awards. Commissioner's awards, $10,000 awards, all kinds of stuff. I'm the guy that put the suggestion in to put the fingerprint reader at the border. That means all the fingerprint readers that people go through today are because I made that suggestion. I'm the one that put the suggestion in about the license plate readers. That means when you drive through the border, your license plate's recorded, and they can use that as a tool, and they can monitor how long you were in a country like Mexico or Canada, places like that. I put in other suggestions, and I got out by that time. So I'm worth a lot of money to them. But they don't want me to know this stuff because they don't expect you to know. They want to compartmentalize everybody. They don't want you to know about the paperless entries, the CIA smuggling, and things like that, just to give you a few items.
John Carman, can you tell people where your website is located?
Yeah, it's customscorruption.com. There's 2 pages. It's a secured site, HTTPS, but you can go customscorruption.com and or customscorruption.com page 2, where you could find the little item there and click onto it. And I've been attacked. I've had my website attacked for years. I'm in books. Rodney Stitch, a good friend of mine, he's passed away. I'm in Drugging America, Chapter 7. I'm archived on the archive.org. It used to be the waybackmachine.org years ago.
Okay.
Saved that. I'm in other books. I've done interviews since 95. I've done radio shows with people like George Putnam up in L.A. His picture and mine are on the in-studio picture on the website, if you go to page 2. A lot of interesting pictures. Me with a guy named Martin Milner. Remember Adam 12?
Sure, Martin Milner on Adam 12. You bet.
Eric Estrada from Chips. Yeah, and Joseph Wamba, just a few pictures. And I happened to run these guys. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I still work for Customs. I was on a day off or something. I went to a show or a a meeting, and they gladly took a picture with me. You know, I got a nasty picture of a lady named Maxine Waters when I was visiting with Gary, not Gary Aldrich, Gary Webb. Gary Webb got killed later.
Waters.
Yeah, but that was proof that I talked to her. You see what I mean? Some people would like to go, "Oh, what are you doing getting a picture with Maxine Waters?" Because I went to this Crack the CIA Coalition thing up in L.A., which dealt with the Ricky the Freeway Ross character, not the rapper guy who spent 20 years in prison because he was working, smuggling and putting cocaine into the black communities under the auspices of the CIA and the agency. So, see, people don't want me to talk on that aspect. I've met with those people. I've met with Black Panthers. I've met with all kinds of people up in L.A. I've done radio shows from East Coast to West Coast. Black interest, white interest, doesn't matter. Anybody, American, needs to know. And I've talked to them. They don't want me doing radio shows with the black communities either. And I've done those across the country. Of course, I protected Martin Luther King Sr., Coretta Scott King at the White House, Reverend Jesse Jackson. I didn't get to tell the story about the limousine driver thing, if I got a minute.
Sure, you bet.
Me and my black partner, we're doing the midnight shift. We're taking a break near 14th Street, which is like half a block from our other location, where we were protecting the JFK limo, and about 2.5 blocks away from the White House. A black limousine pulls up, black chauffeur rolls his window down, older guy, chauffeur cap, gray hair, mustache, and a bow tie and long sleeve shirt, which is kind of classic. And I'm thinking he must have a senator or somebody in there because he's in a bad area, you know, not far from the adult entertainment area off 14th area, famous. But I said, first he asked us, says, "Well, hey guys, we're lost. Can you give us directions?" Like we both look like cops anyway. You know, I still had the signature mustache, like Magnum PI and all that. And how many white dudes and black dudes, salt and pepper team, are cruising around D.C. on a midnight shift?
Yeah, not many.
Like, even DEA drives around with their guns out in the open, you know, that kind of thing. And he says, "Well, you know, we're lost." I said, "Well, who do you have in there?" And I'm thinking somebody else. He said, "No, I got the champ." I said, "What do you mean you got the champ?" "I got Muhammad Ali in here." I said, "No, you don't." I walked right up to the door, opened the door. There's Muhammad Ali in a tuxedo with one of his Muslim wives. Shook his hand right away. And he's 6'2", and I'm 6'3", and I go, yeah, we could go through around. You know, I can just say I did it. I got a martial arts background. I boxed too. I did all that stuff. You name it. So I talked to my partner and says, "Hey, let's do it." He knows where he needs to go. Let's do it. We're off the air on a break. We give him an escort someplace in southeast D.C. near the Capitol building, and it was a mansion. That's it. We took him up there. I think I shook hands one more time when we got back to our zone because we didn't want to be too long and miss Carlos the Jackal crawling around somewhere. And we got back, and I go, "Oh, shoot, we should have got an autograph. We should have got a press package photo or something." They always keep a press package or a briefcase or something in the trunk, you know. So I said, "Oh, shoot. Well, at least he's my witness, and I'm his witness." So we thought later, and I started carrying my Minolta spy camera in my pocket after that thing, you know. But I go, hey, whatever. But at least I knew. And you know what? We'll have to do a story about this, or show on the theory that Elvis, John Burroughs, is still alive. I'm still looking into that. It just came up again. I think he's on witness security, and him and Muhammad Ali were very close. So if something happened, they would be calling each other up. And I talked to all kinds of people connected. So it's not like I'm just out there vegetating and not doing my job. I'm the one that found briefcases that were set outside of a suspicious briefcase set outside of a British embassy in D.C., and the supervisors are trying to grill me. "Well, how come you saw this? What were you doing? Blah, blah, blah." I laughed at him. I said I was doing my job. What were the other guys doing? Oh, they're off messing around, hiding out, doing God knows what, and hiding out and doing something. And I even got a death threat. I did. I forgot about that. I had a death threat when I was Secret Service. No problem. I report it. I get to work at the White House after that. And then I went transferred to the other division. But I developed stuff. I arrested serious violators that jumped the White House fence, all kinds of things. And I'm the kind of guy that they want out in the open right now, late at night, who's armed to the teeth and knows what they're doing and knows how to use the equipment. And yet they got other people way back then that they were totally uncategorized for that job. I can't believe they got the job. They somehow, maybe they knew somebody. But this was after the Watergate thing. And I sent you a little tidbit of a few memory pictures just to kind of jog some memories.
Yeah, I've been looking at the photographs that you've been sending here.
Look at the UFO picture, the Nixon secret time capsule. That is a special deal. I spent 5 hours on first phone call to a guy named Doug Caddy, who was the Watergate attorney. Nixon and the stuff about Watergate was BS. They wanted him out for other reasons. He had access to a special formula that he got a hold of when Dwight D. Eisenhower made a meeting with aliens at Holloman and or Edwards Air Force Base. And I've been to Edwards Air Force Base because I was at China Lake. I know stuff. Oh, by the way, I was asked by the guy that did the website, UFOcrashbook.com, Art Campbell. He wanted me to verify the agents' names that went to the meeting in 1951 or 54, 55 here. I usually say 55. One of them was a guy named Kellerman, if that rings a bell. Kellerman.
Yeah, it does. Why is that?
Because he was the driver or one of the agents in the front seat of the JFK limo when he was shot.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Now, I don't know. It's weird, but since 55 to 63, it's very unusual that you're going to have two of the agents that also protected Eisenhower. But Eisenhower allegedly wasn't going to tell that they accepted the agreement between these aliens, some of them that look like us. And that's another discussion. I've got verification from U.S. Air Force generals that confirmed it before they died, that kind of thing. So we're being lied to about everything. We've got an alien thing going on, technology exchange. I've talked to Philip J. Corso myself because I used to listen to Art Bell years ago. I worked a case for Art Bell. I knew a guy named Ted Gunderson, special SAC agent out of L.A., people like that. The list is endless. I mean, I could make a list someday. That would be a project.
Next time we do a show, I'd like to do a UFO show. I'm going to do part of one this coming Thursday with Ken McClinton. Because I find that would be very interesting. Just my final question for you tonight, John Carman, would be this, and we'll get to it in just a moment. My final question would be, okay, with all the things that have occurred to you, you're soliciting the assistance of any number of people to write letters. What is it that you would like people to do? That'll be my final question. Before we get there, though, since you brought it up, do you find it interesting that a lot of information about UFOs has been mainstreamed? That is to say, it seems to me we're reading more about UFOs in the past 2 years linked to the government than we ever have before. That is to say, the number of incidents that occurred with U.S. Navy and naval fighters off the coast of California, where we're hearing a lot of stuff where it seems as though the U.S. government is admitting that this is occurring and simultaneously releasing video documenting that these things are occurring. I find that kind of odd, or is there something more to it than that?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, I'm just thinking about all the things I could do to approach the question because there's so many answers. The alien treaty that I referred to earlier was giving permission for aliens to take and abduct young prepubescent children, humans, to get the ovum and sperm. Then they could mix their DNA with the ovum and sperm and put them back where they got them. They've had this going on for years in exchange for technology. Then they got to the point where they were taking more than thousands in a month, several thousands later, more and more and more. They're already in the millions, and it's beyond what they originally had agreed to. But the problem is, who owns the planet? We don't own it. They've been here before. They've been here longer than we have. We have all kinds of entities, 87 varieties plus. They will not tell you what's going on with this stuff because this goes back to 36, and that's what kind of shocks me a little bit because I'm going, why do you think they're covering up Uncle Adolf and the stuff that they had with the paperclip, Operation Paperclip, and the Russian scientists got theirs, and the German scientists, and the Americans got scientists from Germany, and all these aspects, but it's all about the DNA. That's why the COVID lie. There's a big gap between all the stuff I'm talking about and the COVID thing is a gap. They want to give us an injection. That's why I suggested we need to talk about the secret time capsule that Nixon was involved in disclosing. He was supposed to bring it out this year, according to other sources. That means if they injected you with the DNA of an alien, we were supposed to be brought to the level of gods. Just like that. Interdimensional travel. Stargate travel, walking through whatever, like the reptilians, supposedly, that kind of stuff. And I could talk intelligently up to a point about that. I have my own sources that are into high-level projects, and people are former project-involved people, military and otherwise. And I'm hesitating to say the certain term. But the point is, we're still being lied to even right now, because if they don't go out and arrest all these child pedophiles and stuff that are going on, why do you think they're keeping these pedophiles and the victims at bay? They're using them for the adrenochromes. The adrenochromes are also tied into these weird things that they're doing, which are satanic in nature, even as far back as the Vatican. My God, if they're doing that, I'm hearing vicious things about one victim a day, every day. They're doing stuff. So it's good versus evil. Aliens are involved because they always said, well, the aliens are this and the aliens are that. And they could be the actual reptilian, Lucifer, or satanic stuff. It's possible. But if you knew what I knew and that stuff I've heard from other sources, they're sorry that they knew what they knew about the aliens. Like Dulce, New Mexico, underground base, for instance. Those reptilians can eat a bunch of stuff that matches our food supply. We are the food supply.
John Carman, let me ask you that final question now because we're getting to just about the end of the show. The final question is, if people could help you,
oh yes,
what or how could people help you throughout your whistleblower issues? What can people do, if anything?
Well, right now I'm asking people to either send money to my PayPal account through my email. john.a.carman@gmail.com, CARMAN. The other problem is I'm blocked. That means if I reach out and report to the chain of command through proper channels to report illegal activity, I'm not getting proper responses. They should have had a phone call from the White House. Secret Service guys should have come and picked me up, told me to pack a bag, and they'll pack the rest later and ship me off to a secure location, and I would be getting reinstated, reactivated, and being debriefed. And I would be put on a special task force to help direct where they need to go, who they need to arrest. If they don't do that, they're part of the problem, and that's the big deal. You have to ask that question. If that's the case, then it's time to retire out, because that's what they would do in certain cases. Yeah, you did a really great job, but you know what? You did it too perfectly. We're going to have to let you retire out, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, it's like in Mexico, the old saying, plomo o plata.
Yeah.
Plomo o plata, lead or silver.
Yep.
And that's what happens. If you're too good. Look at what happened to Kiki Camarena. He did his job, and they killed him.
So, folks, we've been listening to John Carman. We're going to have to wrap up the show. Again, one more time, if you want people to look at your website, what is your website, please?
Oh, customcorruption.com. And if they can write a letter, to write a letter to Trump, Congress and Senate's a waste of time, but it's the usual answer. Well, haven't you contacted your congressman? Oh, my God, I've been doing this for 25 years. They're not doing their job. Even Chuck Grassley's office says they know what they do to whistleblowers, but they're not doing anything. So Trump is the answer, I think. And if he doesn't respond, that means they're bought off Mark Meadows is the chief of staff. If somebody has a single contact, I even tried the Republican National Convention people, and they don't. I've tweeted about it, and they don't get it. Refugees get $10,000 a month, Social Security cards, and passports. Refugees from another country. That's under the Obama administration, and they haven't stopped it yet. How come Americans aren't getting $10,000 a month? I could live off that.
Yeah, but you're not a guaranteed vote for the Democrats.
Yeah, exactly. And they violate that in the state of California, by the way, because I challenged it because I'm a former law enforcement official, so therefore I vote absentee all the time. I already cast my ballot last week, and it's supposed to be confidential, which means when you look at the envelope, when you get it in the mail, it's not supposed to have a designator with a D or an R or anything. I already complained about that over 6 months ago on the last election to the state of California and the Secretary of State and the governor. You know, that guy related to Pelosi, that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they know what they're doing. And Kamala Harris is supposed to look at stuff on my behalf because I'm technically a constituent in the state of California. They look you up right away just to see if you're where your zip code is and if you're a Democrat or Republican. If you're a Republican, tough luck.
Yeah.
You'll hear from them.
Yeah, you'll go to hell. All right, John Carman, thanks for being on tonight. You have a great night, sir. I greatly appreciate it. Next time you come on, hey, I wouldn't mind going through the deep depths of UFOs and whatnot. So thanks tonight for being here, sir. Appreciate it.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you.
God bless. Take care and be safe, sir.
Thank you.
That was John Carman. I'm BZ, and it's time for this.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the wrap-up. Thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. I'm very active on Twitter. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. And thanks to my guest tonight for both hours, John Carman. Thank you, sir, for being here. Thanks to everybody who was in chat in the SHR Media Room. Thanks for being in chat in Facebook. And if you happen to be in chat in YouTube, which unfortunately I can't monitor all those places, come back Thursday night. Ken McClinton is in the room. Going to try to get Carrie Baxter Donovan to talk about her article. Everybody, God bless. Take care. Be safe. Go to bed.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Sleep.
Good night, and good luck.